Reduction to percents. And usually people say, oh, why we have to know percent? Well, you know what? We use percents all the time. For example, if you go out to eat and the bill comes out, you order your food and you get the bill and there's your bill, you look at it and you have all these items that you bought, drinks and appetizers and food. In the bottom it says the total amount, that's before tip, is 120, and you want to leave some tip for them. You go, well, the service was really good. I want to leave 20% tip, 20%. Well, what does a 20% means? Well, first let's look at how do we go from percent to a fraction. So let's talk about this topic. How do we change percent to a fraction? So 20%, to go from percent to a fraction, we always divide by 100. That's how we do it. We divide by 100. So that becomes what? 20 over 100 as a ratio, which means what? If your bill is $100, you leave how much tip? 20. If you want to simplify that, notice I can divide by 10, and that will make it what? 2 over 10. If you think about that bill now, $120. Yep. If you think about it, if you were to pay that with $10 bills, how many of them are you going to need? 12, right? So 12 times 2, your tip should be what? For every, you're going to pay this with $10 bills. So you need 12 of them. 12 times 10 is 120. For every $10 that you spend at that restaurant, you need to leave $2 for tip. So if you give them 12 sets of these $10 bills, you're going to leave for tip 12 times 2, which is what? $24. So what's the total bill now? Total 144. You can simplify the 2 over 10, which is what? 1 over 5. My wife is not really a math person, so she's like, percent to her is like gibberish stuff. I said, just remember, for every $5, leave $1. So it doesn't matter. Like if your bill, for example, $40, if you want to pay it with $5 bills, it's $40. How many $5 bills are you going to need? 8, you leave $8. If the bill is $20, you're going to pay with $5 bills. That's how many? 4, that's $4 tip. That's the easiest way. For every 5, leave $1. What about if the service is not good? You go, I hate the service. It was really horrible. I'm only going to leave 10% tip. So what's 10% as a fraction? That's 10 over what? 100. Which if you simplify it, 1 over 10. So if you hated the food, you hated the service, you hated everything about the place. The service and the food, two different things. But let's say you hated the service. It was horrible. The young man or the lady never came back to give us water. My food never came on time. It was cold. Everything was horrible. So for you want to leave them 10%, you go for every 10, leave $1. $12. What about if you're taking a loan to buy a car? Anyone knows what the interest rate for a loan for a car? For a new car, it might be 2.9%. Or 0 even. But if it's 2.9, what is that as a fraction? That's 2.9 divided by what? By 100. Well, we can't leave it like that because we don't want to see decimal values here. So how do we change that number to a whole number? Move it, yes, Jamie, which way? Did you move it to the right one place? So that would be what? 29 over, not 100, 1,000. Because remember, there's a decimal point here. If you move this one place, you got to move that one place. Now, if you have a credit card, probably the interest rate is, let's say, 27%, some of them. Ridiculous number. So as a fraction, that'll be what? 27 over 100, and you can simplify it. Soon enough, it's going to be Christmas time, and you're going to see all these sales all the time. They go 25% off. What is 25% off? That's 25 over what? 100. Can you simplify that? So 1/4 of the price is off. 1/4. The other number that you see a lot at Christmas time is 33 1/3% off. $33 1/3. Anyone knows what that number is? Well, let's see. Let's change it to a fraction. 33 1/3 divided by what? 100. So if you look at that, it reads 33 1/3 divided by what? 100. That's 3 times 33 is what? 99 plus 1. That's 100 over 3 divided by 100 over 1. How do we do division? KFC. 100 over 3, keep, change, and flip. 1/3 off. So that's why you see the 33 1/3. That says 1/3 of the price is off. So if you see a blouse or a shirt for $60, you're going to save what? 1/3 of that. What's 1/3 of 60? You're going to save $20. It means it's going to cost you $40 plus taxes. When you see 50%, what is that? Half off, yep. On the test, actually, on the quiz, the homework, you're probably going to see half the questions changing percent to fraction, and changing the reverse, fraction to percent, and changing percent to decimal. So let me talk about changing percent to decimal. Percent to decimals. And for that, you move the decimal point how many places? 2 places. Which direction? 2% to decimal, to left. Now I'll give you one easy way to remember which way to move. I'll give you a little hint. Let's write our alphabet. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W. I don't care about the rest. I'm out of space. Decimal begins with what letter? D. Percent begins with what letter? P. Changing percent to decimal. You want to go from here, percent to decimal. Which way you have to go? To the left. So if you want to go from decimal to percent, which way do you go? To the right. That's the easiest way to remember. Alphabet. Yep. I always try to think of different ways to remember it, so I thought of this idea. Because people say, I know it's 2 places, but I'm not sure which direction. Just think of the alphabet. If you have a percent, which you'll be here, you want to go to decimal, you go to the left. If you have decimal, you want to go to percent, you go to the right. So here we go from percent to decimal, we have to go to the left. Sales tax, for example. In Massachusetts, sales tax is what? 6.5%. So to change 6.5% to a decimal value, that will be what? Move the decimal point how many places? 2 to the left. So if I move it 2 places to the left, what's that number? Nope. 0, 6, 5. Remember, 6.5, and you got to move it 2 places to the left. This is 1, 2. 0.065. Now, if you have 11%, let's say you're buying a used car, and the guy said 11% interest. To change that to decimal, that's what? Here's the 11, there's your decimal point at the end if there's no decimal point. So what do you do with it? Move it 2 places to the left, and that'll be what? 0.11. If you're putting money in the bank, you might be lucky to get 0.5% interest, 0.5%. So as a decimal value, that's what? 0.005 cents, yes. You got to move the decimal point 2 places to the left. 1, 2, 0, 0. So it's 0.005. 12.5% as a decimal number is what? 0.125. 240%. 240. Where's my decimal point for the 240? At the end. Move it 2 places to the left. That will make it what?
2.4.
Yep, 2.4 or 2.40. Let me just jump ahead here, 'cause that's coming up later. But let's say we're buying a car. You go to buy a car. What do you want to buy? Used or a new car? Used. You want to buy a used car. And you find the car for $16,000. Let's say you buy it for $16,000. Now, you think that's what the car is going to cost you? Oh no, there's more money. Because when you go to register that car, the state of Massachusetts says, wait a minute, we charge 6.5% tax. So there's a tax on that car that's equal to what? 6.5% of the price of the car. Yep. 6.5% of the price of the car. Well, 6.5 as a decimal number, 0.065, of always means what in math? Multiply, and this is the price of the car. What was the price of the car? 16,000. So I'll cheat. Let me take a calculator here. 0.065 times 16,000. You better have another $1,000 and $40, 1,040 for sales tax. So instead of 16,000, now you're up to 1,740. Then you need the registration. I think $60 or $50 for registration. You're already up to 17,100 bucks. Now on the other hand, if you bought a new car, it's even worse. Because a new car will be what, 35,000 roughly? So if you put 35 instead of 16,000 here, your tax is going to be almost 2,500 bucks. If it was 35,000 times 0.065, $2,275. That's just the sales tax on that car. So if you bought it for 35,000, add to it that number. Now you're 37,275. Imagine if you buy an expensive car like a BMW or a Mercedes for 60,000, 70,000. 60,000 times 0.065. Another almost 4,000 bucks add to that car. But that's how we go from percent to decimal.
That's the law of the state.
Yes, it's 6.5%.
From like Rhode Island or something.
Well, when you come back to register it here, you still got to pay the money. So one way or another, even if you go to Connecticut to buy it, when you go to register it, they're actually going to charge you that money.
But sometimes they go by the book value.
Yep, if you buy it from a person, they go by the appraised value, what they think the value of the car.
Book value.
But if you buy it from a dealer, they'll use actually the price, the bill of sale. You know. But if you buy it from your cousin, say, hey, can you give me the car? Instead of 16,000, write 4,000. They go, oh, no, we're going to look at this car. That's 2010 Honda Accord or 2012. That's worth 16,000.
Yeah,
But I got it for 4,000. Nope, that's worth 16. You pay tax on 16. Oh yeah, they got you. They're not. Yeah, because a lot of people will do that. So I'm selling it to you for 1,000 here.
What if I got it like as a gift?
If it's family, that's different. Family member, you don't pay tax on them.
You can get away with that.
Yep. Has to be mom, dad, brother, sister. That's it.
Just those things.
Yep. But if I give you a gift, you're still gonna pay taxes. How do you change decimal to percent? Well, the reverse. Changing decimals to percent. Remember, percent to decimal, here's my alphabet. Percent to a decimal, we move the decimal point how many places? 2 to the left. So to go from decimal to percent, what are we going to do? Move it what? 2 places to the right. Move decimal point 2 places to right. So if I write 0.00524 as a decimal value, I said, can you change that to a percent? Move the decimal point how many places? 2 to the right, that will make it 0.524. Then you add the percent sign. .195. That would be 19.5%. Move the decimal point 2 places to the right. 0.024. 2.4%. 1.05. What do we do? Move it 2 places to the right. So what is that? 105%. So the good news, if you remember 1, like percent to a decimal, then you know decimal to percent. The reverse of that. The reverse of moving it 2 places to the left is moving it 2 places to the right. Or remember your alphabet. Again, a quick reminder. How do we change percent to a fraction? Divide by 100. So, well, let me ask you this. How do you change fractions then to percent? Changing percent to a fraction, we divide by 100. So what do you think the opposite to dividing by 100 will be? What is it? Multiply. Multiply by 100. So once you remember this one, you go percent to a fraction, I got to divide, then the other one has to be multiplied. The reverse of that. I'm telling you, you're going to see on the quiz or the homework at least half the problems changing between percent to fraction, fraction to percent to decimal, decimal to percent. These changes back and forth to make sure that you know them. So let's try some examples here. What is 1/5 as a fraction? Change it to a percent. It is a fraction. I want to change it to a percent. You're going to multiply that? Go ahead. You're going to buy 100, right? And the 100's 100 over what? 1. And if you remember from chapter 2, when you multiply fractions is what? The top times the top, the bottom times the bottom. 1 times 100 is 100. 5 times 1 is 5. Can I simplify 100 over 5? That's what? 20. So the answer is 20%. 1/5 is actually 20%. What about 7/20th? To change that to percent, what do? We multiply by 100. Again, there's two options when you're multiplying fractions. You can either multiply first, then simplify. And what was the other option? Simplify first, then multiply. So it might be easier if I simplify first. By 20, this is what? 1. By 20, this is 5. Now let's multiply. 7 times 5, 35 over 1, which is what? 35%. What about 1 3/8? I want to change it to a percent. That's a fraction to percent. So that would be 1 3/8 times what? 100. And if you're going to multiply these, probably the first thing you want to do is change that number to what? Improper. 8 times 1, 8 and 3, 11 over 8 times 100 over what? 1. I can simplify. I can divide by 4. By 4, this is what? 2. By 4, what's 100 by 4? 25. 25 times 11. Is it 275? I think it's 275. Divided by 2. Well, I don't want to leave it like fraction. I'm going to divide it. So what is 275 divided by 2? That's 1. 1 times 2 is 2. Bring that 7. 7 by 2, 3. 3 times 2 is 6. Remainder is 1. Bring the 5 here. 15 by 2, 7. 7 times 2, which is what? 14. Remainder is 1. Remember, there's a decimal point here if you need it, and lots of zeros, right? Bring that 0 down. 10 divided by 2. 5. 5 times 2, 10, and you're done. So that is 137.5%. Or you can write that 137, there was a remainder of 1. 137 1/2%. I could have left it like that too. So those are the big features. Let's give you a problem just to practice all four. I will give you a problem, see if you remember the rules here, which is just changing. 12%. I want you to change that to fraction. That's the first question. So what do we do?
Move the decimal.
Now move the decimal. We're going to fraction.
12 over 100.
Yes, Jamie. 12 over 100. Percent to a fraction, you divide by 100. Can we simplify? Sure, we can divide by 4 or by 2. By 4, this is 3. By 4 is what? 25. I divided by 4. So that's what? 3 over 25. %. I want you to change it to decimal. Percent to decimal. So percent alphabet. Percent is on the right, decimal on the left. You're going to move the decimal point how many places? Which direction? To the left. So there's the 18. My decimal point is here. Move it 2 places. 1, 2. What's that number is going to be? 0.18. .0342. Change it to percent. Notice that's a decimal. You go into percent. Which direction we're going to move it? To the right. How many places? 2. 3.42. You're welcome. 2 places to the right. Let me try 3/8. Change that to percent. What do we have? Fraction, and we go into percent. What's a fraction to percent? What do? Multiply by 100, yes. By 4, this is 25. By 4, this is what? 2. 3 times 25, 75 over 2. And let's divide 75 by 2 and see what that number has a percent. 75 divided by 2, you go 3. 3 times 2, 6. 15 divided by 2. 7. 7 times 2, which is what? 14, remainder is 1. So you can write that 37 in what? 1/2%. Or, yes, if you don't like that, you want to use a decimal. Remember, there's a decimal point here. And there is a 0 if you need it. Bring that 0 down. What's 10 by 5? By 2. 5. 5 times 2, 10. Or you can write that 37.5%. And those are the 4 rules. Percent to fraction, percent to decimal, decimal to percent, fraction to percent. You memorize them, you get at least 40-50 points on the next quiz. Just from these 4 rules. I'll stop here. Next time we're going to give you some application. I start talking about sales tax, commission, what else? You see percentage, shopping. When you see result of election poll, for example, the election couple weeks, Hillary Clinton versus Donald Trump, you see these percentage. You go, the approval rate of the president of Clinton is 45%, or not approval rate, honesty. People ask people, how honest do you think Hillary Clinton? I think 40% of people say she's honest. 60% said dishonest. Donald Trump is not much better. He's worse than that. You know? So how do you come up? What is these percentage? So you'll see us use these percentage next time. I'll stop here with this.